How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Vampiress Carmilla. This is issue number 8, and it's from May 2022. If you guys are unfamiliar with this magazine, Vampiress Carmilla is a collection of black and white, classically styled anthology horror stories, and they're all hosted by Vampiress Carmilla herself. So if you guys like classic horror, like the classic monsters, there's a lot of those in here, but they always take the time to do something a little different with them and give you really good, unique stories. This is by the same people that made the Creeps, which would later rebrand as Shudder, and this comes out every other month, alternating with Shudder, and it's really fun. I definitely would recommend it to classic horror fans. And this is another really solid issue. Both Shudder and Carmilla stay remarkably consistent in that the stories in them are always usually pretty good, you know? So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this cover. This is, as it says here, Abominable Horror lurks inside. So this is the Abominable Snowman cover. And I'd like to really quick give you guys a brief apology. Sorry about the censorship. That is not me, that is YouTube. YouTube's enforcement of the rules is both very inconsistent and very strict, and I work hard on my videos. I don't want to get in trouble, so little post-it note covering up a little bit of butt. It's really not bad, but you're on YouTube, you know how they can be. But anyway, I really do like this cover. The big Yeti ripping his way in, the orange fire, giving this whole thing a nice firelit tint, and then the way that goes into the logo there. Very, very fun. Let's take a look on the other side of the cover really quick. And we can see Vampiress Carmilla's Scary Tales. And this time, it's talking about white ladies. And it's talking about how sometimes a woman will die in tragedy, and her ghost will haunt the place she died in a white veil, and it's talking about a few famous ones on the side, and it also mentions that Asian cultures have this ghost as well, and it does a brief reference to The Ring, which I really do love that movie, glad to see them reference it, but it also talks about how sometimes white ladies are kind of like banshees, so if you see one, be careful. Anyway, we go over here, and we get the table of contents. We can see the 6 stories. First, we get Carmilla's Blood Letters, and then the first story, Scare Trade, Nightfall, The Unwrappable Mummy Brown, An Abominable Horror, that's the cover story, No Hope Atoll, and then Hell No Dolly. And then these are some images from those stories. I gotta love the name of the last story. I love creepy doll stories. It's really, really fun. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk a bit about the stories. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers. I do want to, show you guys what each of the stories is about, but I'll be avoiding those twists. So anyway, just going to say my piece on a few plot points and show you guys a tiny bit of the artwork. Anyway, first we get Carmilla's Blood Letters, and someone said that the long and short of it was their favorite story from issue number 7. And then after that, we get the Carmilla Ketchup page, where she's talking about, where we see what's going on in the castle, and we see that Dracula himself has stopped by for a visit. Now, Vampiress Carmilla is currently living in Dracula's castle, and all the other monsters are as well, and she's wanting to know what's going on. Do you want your old castle back? And Dracula says, no, I'm just passing through, and I want to see what you did with the place. And they do a little tour of the castle, and Dracula decides to stay for the stories on the one condition that they don't tell any vampire stories. And actually, in this issue, there are no other vampire stories, so thanks for the canon. Now, I do want to say that in the first issue of Vampiress Carmilla, Carmilla and Dracula weren't on the best of terms. I guess they've moved beyond that now. But also Dracula was referenced to be dead in issue 1. I guess he's found some way to come back, which isn't that surprising because, you know, he is Dracula. Anyway, let's move on to the first story proper. This is Scare Trade, and we see this woman walking home late at night, and a man starts to follow her, and she's got a beautiful body, but when she turns around, it seems that she has a very ugly face and frightens the man away. Well, you see, she's been living with this her whole life. She's very beautiful, but her face is very ugly, and people will, you know, kind of stay away from her and kind of make fun of her. So she is driven to the point of insanity because this, and she actually kills the man who is spooked by her face and runs off. She goes to a bridge and she's thinking about ending it all. And as she's thinking about that, we get a flashback and we get to find out about the story of her life and what drove her to being a murderer and all the people that were very mean to her over the course of the years there. Again, a very interesting story following this character throughout her life and getting to see what drove her to this point. And of course, we get a supernatural twist at the end where, you know, maybe she's found a way out of this. By the way, if you guys like this story, there was an episode of Masters of Horror by Dario Argento, which had another character that was a beautiful woman with a messed up face. It was called Jennifer. But other than the characters being similar, that story goes in a completely different direction. But if you like the concept, check out the Jennifer episode of Masters of Horror. Anyway, after that, we have Nightfall. And you see there's this knight, and he has to prove his worth, so he's going to go and kill this witch. But he really has no reason to do this other than a form of initiation, and the castle has no real beef with this witch other than her just being a witch, so she sends him away and slams the door and is just trying to keep this guy away. And of course, he's not going to give up, again, even though he doesn't have any real motivation to fight this witch other than he just needs to prove himself. So this poor lady's like, just leave me alone. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep attacking you. But of course, she's up to some secret work at this castle, and she doesn't want to be disturbed. And what will happen when she is disturbed? It's one of those stories that does go pretty heavily into a fun, out-of-nowhere ending when you find out what the witch was actually doing. It's pretty cool. Anyway, after that we get the unwrappable Mummy Brown, and there's this lady, a failed actress, and she, out of nowhere, is invited to a party thrown by this famous painter, and you see he's purchased a mummy, and he's going to be doing an unwrapping. You know, it's sort of old-timey English people, just, hey, let's buy a mummy and unwrap it just for kicks, you know. But she's wondering what she's doing there, and she talks to the host of the party, and he explains what's going on, and he says, I had to go down to Egypt because I wanted to buy a mummy so that I could make a tube of mummy brown paint, which, yes, is actually a real thing. Way back in time, they used to grind up mummies and use their dead, crumbled up flesh as pigment for the paint, and it is actually a real thing. I had actually heard about it long before this issue, and this kind of jogged my memory. I'm like, oh, that's what this story's about. So this guy, he finds a guy selling mummies, and this one's supposed to be a super old, cursed mummy, a sort of old-timey magic priest, and he says, I'll take this mummy for a display, and I'll take another less important mummy, and we'll ground that one up and make some paint. And she goes, okay, but what am I doing here? And it turns out he's trying to paint his magnum opus. He's trying to make a great Egyptian painting, and he needs Mummy Brown to do it, and he wants this actress to model for him. So he paints her, and I love these panels where you see her in her little Egyptian outfit, and she's just kind of upset to be there, but she wants to do it for the fame and stuff, so she's in her outfit just kind of pouting, you know? But this is one that does lead to a pretty fun, crazy twist. I especially love what they do with the painting in like the second to last panel here. It is pretty fun. So a good, fun mummy story. Again, and this is what I always say with the Creeps, is they're doing a mummy story, but they're not just going to do the same old mummy rises, finds the reincarnation of his lost love story. They take a weird, obscure history fact, the real-life Mummy Brown paint, and they reinvent it into this modern, well, not modern, but set a little bit later, British mummy story. It's just a clever reinvention with a disturbing old-timey historical fact. Anyway, up next, The Abominable Hour. The Abominable Horror. And you see this village, one of their sons is going to marry one of their princesses, so the two villages have peace, and they actually really, really love each other, and the girl is known as the most beautiful woman in the whole land. However, the village exiled a witch a long time ago. She lives in a castle off to the north, and she wants revenge and says, if I kill the princess, the two cities will go to war. So she summons a Yeti to go and attack the city, and it's going right for the princess. Again, I can't show you guys too many pages from this story. Remember the butt from the front cover? Well, that's in this story. But really fun, using the Yeti as kind of a tool for destruction, and, you know, you have to find the witch that's behind it all. You know, usually, again, you know, like I said with the Mummy, there's usually a way that these stories are told, you know, like with the Yeti, it's usually just, hey, we're explorers, we found the Yeti, oh no. But to use the Yeti in a fantasy scene, and this is actually the second, you know, kind of Castle Times story that we're told here, but both are very different. But to say, here's a fantasy Castle Time story with a Yeti in it, and again, it does have a pretty fun, clever twist at the end there. Moving right along to No Hope Atoll, and this is about this guy. He's at war, and he's the last surviving guy from his troop. He was ambushed by the Japanese. This is during World War II, and he meets a woman on the island, and she goes, I'm a native of this island. The Japanese killed everybody I know. I'm on your side. And they're both trying to figure out how to win the war, and she says there are these temples, these old-timey temples on the island. If you can lure the Japanese in here, this strange creature that's also mad that all the natives got killed will take revenge. And yeah, a really fun old-school style war story. You know, you talk about the old-school style stories that the Creeps, Shudder, and Vampiress Carmilla are always referencing. Lots of old-school horror, but there's also a lot of old war stories in there, and this really does have the feel of an older war story. And also, with a creature twist. What exactly is going on inside that temple? And again, this is actually a very twisty issue of Carmilla. Lots of these stories have fun little moments at the end. I mean, I guess Carmilla typically has twists, but I think this one goes pretty hard into the twist, or at least in a few stories, and that one does have a fun ending. But anyway, one of my favorites here, just because I'm a sucker for doll stories, but Hell No Dolly. And this one, you get this girl who says, Daddy, buy me this doll in the window. But it's not just a little girl doll in a little dress. This is a mysterious doll of a devil-looking guy. And she's like, I have to have it. And the shop owner's like, yeah, someone just dropped that off at the shop. I don't know what it is, and I've been trying to sell it for months. But the girl starts talking to the doll. She won't leave it alone. She's trying to feed it, and she just gets obsessed with this doll. But then one day, her and the doll go outside with a knife to visit the neighbor dog, and it doesn't go pretty well. And the wife goes, "Honey, something has to be done about our daughter. Something has to be done about her doll." And it's a pretty fun, creepy doll story. The doll's trying to influence people, getting them to do evil things. And yeah, I don't know, I'm a sucker for creepy doll stories. And I really do like, let me find a good shot of that doll. It's got these big, creepy horns going out of its head. And the way it just, stares at people. I mean, and then there's also her regular doll right beside it there. Really cool, creepy design for this doll. I love creepy doll stories, and this was a fun one. So, yeah, gotta love this story. Anyway, that was 6 already. I can't believe how quickly we go through this magazine sometimes. But another really fun issue of Carmilla. I really did like it. And I think the next issue of Shudder is already out as well, so I'll probably cover that next week. So stick around if you want to see me talk about Shudder 4. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you guys want to see more, you can click there and see more. This should be my Creeps/Carmilla/Shudder magazine. And I've actually talked about all of Carmilla so far, so if you want to see me talk about every single issue, those are in there as well as the other magazines. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.